All right, we have started recording. Can you hear me good?
Yes, sir. How's it going, man?
Good, good. All right, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody real quick?
Yeah, shit. Hell, I'm Jake. I be schizo posting on Twitter sometimes. Man, been doing music for a good while, but honestly, just getting my hands into producing. So I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome, awesome. So we're gonna start out with a couple questions. What is your digital audio workstation that you're working with right now?
Right now, fuck, I got Fruity Loops on this little Chromebook that I'm actually in the middle of fucking fixing. So between that, I'm at real shit. If it ain't Fruity Loops, I'm fucking around on BandLab on here like one of those TikTok fuckers.
Yeah,
But it ends up working out pretty well, honestly, like mobile wise.
yeah, that makes sense. No, that Fruity Loops is great, and there's a lot of like hit songs made on BandLab too. Fruity Loops is actually a pretty good starting place if you're interested in creating like a whole song from scratch. It's not what I would recommend for audio mixing, but you can certainly still do great audio mixes on Fruity Loops and on BandLab and on anything you use. Um, can you let me see if I can share my screen and you could see my Ableton while I'm streaming. Yeah, can you see that?
Ooh, it looks like a, yeah, there we go. Yeah, see, Ableton and Pro Tools are the two that I've always heard are best when it comes to like actually wanting to get into the know of mixing and stuff.
Yeah, so it is Pro Tools. I would say is the industry standard, and most people, if you are looking to be a engineer or a mixing engineer or a recording engineer, um, I would recommend learning Pro Tools because most people are gonna want you to have that in the studio until they trust you. I use Ableton, but in the studio we have here, which you'll be able to see in the video later. Um, it is a complete Pro Tools studio. I just do Ableton on my end just because it's what I've learned for a little bit. But all right, but basically, what I'm gonna teach you here can be translated into Ableton, Pro Tools, Fruity Loops, everything. Um, and so today, to keep it kind of compact, we're gonna go with we're gonna go with learning how to do tracking vocals. Do you know what that tracking vocals is?
Uh, I don't think I could describe it as well or in short enough words as you, but I think I get the gist of it.
Yep. So, yeah, tracking vocals is basically just recording. Like it's just what you're tracking along the way. People are gonna say you're gonna utilize the word tracking a lot, but it just means recording. You're live recording vocals, and
Okay, so yeah, just your initial cuts and whatnot.
yep, exactly. And your first takes, everything on that. We're gonna start there today, and to give like a brief summary, there's three stages I think to recording and engineering. I mean, to making a song from mixing to recording and to mastering. It would be recording engineer, which can be somebody who entirely works just on recording and capturing the best vocals. And then there's the mixing engineer who kind of adds the secret sauce or like the real finesse to the song and gives it like soul. And then there's the mastering engineer who basically just puts the finishing touches on everything and makes it palatable on all speakers, on all setups, and really finishes the translation of from artist to completed song.
And that, yeah, that'd be where you'd get most of the like shaving the extra gain off of things and like making sure things aren't too grouped together so that the sound doesn't get muffled, that type of thing.
Exactly. Yep. And that would,
Sweet. I'd say
yeah.
I'd say I have a bit more of an understanding on number three out of those three main groups, but that doesn't mean I know enough, you know.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's good that you understand mastering because if you can understand some of the concepts with that, you can backwards translate those into the other steps. And they're not one is not
No,
harder
that's
than
more
the
or less what
other.
I've been doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and all three of the stages, one of the other is not harder than the other. They all have their own challenges and certain things to deal with. But yeah, let's get right into it. So basically, when you're tracking, right, it is important to have certain things on the vocal, and I have this in the wrong spot. Um, I would highly recommend having these on no matter what you're doing, because tracking is super important. The reason being behind that is because if you capture a bad vocal, you are not gonna have a great finished product. There's nothing you can do to completely take a bad piece of audio, because the distortion, a lot of stuff is unsalvageable, and it won't. There's no way to save it. Basically, long story long, the metaphor would be is you can't polish a turd. A turd is always going to be a turd.
Yeah, no matter how much you try to denoise or scrub it, if you still can't get that crunchy delay out, you may as well just scrap it.
Mm-hmm. And so basically, or yeah, just go and re-record it. And that would bring me to the next point, which would be your setup. If you can afford a Focusrite or a cheap audio interface that allows for the not USB plug, I forgot the name of the plug for the regular mic, um, and any microphone that's like under $200 but not lower than 80. Um, like you can get an Audio Technica AT 2020 for like 90 to $100, I think, and that thing took me to a lot of took me pretty far. And then I upgraded to a Bluebird that was like 250. Then I'm planning to upgrade to a Shure SM7B, but you just need a basic condenser mic. I forgot to mention that as well. Condenser mic. It needs to be a
Yes, sir.
condenser mic. Yep. Um, and then a Focusrite. I mean, an audio interface. It could be a Focusrite that a lot of people get. That one usually goes on sale often, or you could find them used on eBay for cheap. Um,
Yeah, and I've done that a couple times actually.
yeah, perfect. So, what do you have set up right now?
Actually, right now I have a very cheap interface. My last Focusrite, I got that thing for like $20. Come to find out,
Nice.
it's because it was very much on its last legs. Damn thing didn't even last a month. Uh, Worth the $20 though. I got a song or two out of it. Right now it's this cheap little interface that I got as a Christmas present, and then no, that's not. Yeah, no, that's my cheap mic. Yeah, another cheap ass condenser mic. Honestly, don't even. I think it's an off-brand one. Real basic stuff in this one. That in my little home studio here, just because there's. I mean, this is more for just vocal takes.
Could you show the room for everybody?
Yeah,
Or awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
because I can stream that.
As soon as it lets me out of, there we go. Let's see. So here's the mic, and I actually So I was having some issues with it, and I was running some audio tests actually because these little plug-in Apple headphones have a pretty damn crisp sound to them. So
Yep.
I was comparing and testing the sound between the Apple headphones and what the product of the condenser mic was, and having to fiddle with my knobs and stuff on this whole thing.
Oh, what kind of
Yeah,
interface
it
is
does.
that?
Wait, it's I couldn't tell you, man. It was a Christmas present and it
Okay.
works. I honestly
Yeah.
I don't even really be like I turn it on, let it do its thing. You know, sometimes I'll have to mess with the levels on it,
Mm-hmm.
but really, it works. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't work well, but it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I would say if you could point back to your mic real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
So those wires that are all hanging, if they're all plugged in and they're all around the wire of your cable right now, it's gonna give that cable some feedback. So
Yeah,
the
actually, that being said, I have the mic cable, and whenever I am recording, this is just where they hang,
okay,
or when I'm not recording. So, but then whenever I do get to it, I keep the wire for the mic itself actually strapped to the apparatus itself, and
yeah,
then kind of
okay,
fed
good,
toward the back to where it's nice and out of the way. But yeah, no,
nice.
it's a bit of a mess right now for sure.
No, yeah, okay, that's good. I was gonna say maybe that'll be some of the reasons you get static. It also probably could be that interface. If you could go to like a Focusrite again, or
Yeah, that's the plan.
the I think the main goal would be an Apollo. Apollo is really nice. Let me just check.
Dude, yeah, my good buddy Prophet has been running on the same Apollo for like 6 years now.
Yeah, so just double check with this the head studio engineer over here, and he he says the Apollo Twin is the best option. The more expensive, but it is the best option.
For sure.
Awesome. All right, so let's move on and let's get on to the tracking setup. So basically, if you can see my screen here, it's all these, the way these effects are lined up in Ableton. Um, it'll go from this effect first, and then from this effect, which is Waves Auto Tune, it'll have Auto Tune, and the Auto Tune will be sent through this gate, which will it's a noise floor because I'm not in a sound treated room. So this what this is here, I'll go over that in a second actually. So this goes to the gate. The gate goes through a saturator, which is another compressor. The gate and the saturator are both compressors, and then it goes through an EQ for a little bit of so to take away the low end that is unnecessary underneath 100 hertz, and then to boost a little bit of the high end very 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 lightly, and then some more auto tune at the end if I need it.
Yeah.
And so basically here, the reason why I have it set up like this, you could have another compressor after the EQ. You could have some more EQ or something else, but I like to keep my tracking vocals very very basic. One, because it reduces the latency in Ableton and it helps me edit it later. Because if you don't have an Apollo Twin or a preamp or a cloud lifter or something like that to take some load off of your computer, off of your CPU, you will get latency no matter what. No matter what program
Oh
you're
yeah, and
using.
especially between transfers, that's one of the biggest issues I've had, like between from my Chromebook to my phone, is sometimes like a whole new delay will pop up on it, or some other issue because of
Mm,
how it was compressed between transferring the file.
dang. Okay. Yeah, that's yeah.
Just it's simple shit. It's probably not as complicated as I'm making it sound, but
Yeah, no, that
yeah,
makes sense.
it happens all the time too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so yeah, basically if um you can keep a very light load on the tracking, then you when you go to mix, a lot of people they get excited from an effect, like they'll hear auto tune and they'll throw the effect all the way up onto the tracking vocals, but now you're printing that auto tune onto the actual vocals. So now that you can't take that auto tune off if you want to later on, or if it's an option. A lot of times people don't care and they want auto tune on the original vocals, and that works. Um, a lot of if you're not entirely sure if a song should have autotune or not, it's probably best to not have the autotune put on and just put it on in post. And then if don't like the way it sounds with post autotune, then record it again with the printed autotune on. I know that sounds like a long way to do it, but it's just a way to make sure you have all your options open when you're not too sure
No,
whether
it
to
makes
use
perfect
autotune or
sense.
not. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I even have an anecdotal example like for that. Even on something as simple as like transposing the semitones. Like if you're doing that not in post, like you'll still even be able to hear the effects of changing the semitones and trying to revert it back. Like even on something as small as that.
Exactly. And yeah, so that's basically that's the thing. Is like when you're recording, whatever you have on it is gonna be permanent. So if you're overdrive, like if you're overdriving it or you're causing some distortion, that distortion's gonna be there no matter what. And once again, you can't polish a turd. So you'll have to just go and re-record it again if you truly want, or unless sometimes the distortion is what you wanted and it was intentional or it was unintentional and it came out sounding good. There's no wrong or right way to do anything. These are just guidelines that get you a clean vocal a lot of times, but sometimes people want to make dirty vocals, and in those cases, then
Absolutely, it's a
that'd be
matter of
fine.
preference.
Right, right. All right, so let's go
Some
into the
people want to
order.
burn over the mixtape. Some people want to be in the booth.
Right, yeah, no, 100%. And all right, so let's go into the order right here. I have auto tune first. This is Waves Tune. It's a really basic, light, no, like very low latency app. I mean plugin. So when I have this on, I use this as my main auto tune on first, and I use it very lightly. And the reason being is because the auto tune is very low latency. It gets me right to where I need to go with like the pitch and everything, and it's not too crazy. Um, and then I utilize that into the gate, which like I was mentioning before, this is a compressor. There's a different version of a gate on almost every um, digital audio workstation, and also there's industry standard gates plugins that you can just purchase and have it on an iLock, and you'll have them on any digital audio workstation that you want to utilize. So this is a compressor, and this is just taking the bottom levels of my audio out. Let me actually open up a actual I think this one's the last one.
What I'm gathering so far from how you've set the lecture up, man, is that it's almost like the golden rule is similar to that of super glue. A lot or a little should do a lot,
Yes,
and if
exactly.
you're having to apply a lot, you're fucking up.
Exactly. Yes, a little goes a long way with the entire process. There's are situations where you're like, huh, let me hear. Sometimes I like to work backwards. Like if I really like an effect, I'll throw that thing all the way up, and then I'll tune it down to the point where I like it. Some people like the opposite. Some people want to hear it with no effect on it, and then keep pushing it up till they hear the effect. It's to yet it's a taste thing, and a lot of this will still be a taste. So here we
Nice.
go.
Yeah, that same process is actually how I learned which semitone Mac Miller transposed his voice to get Delusional Thomas. He
Yeah,
upped it by
exactly. So here I have um, this is the tracking vocal, but we won't be looking at. We're gonna be looking at my main mixing vocal chain, which pretty much has similar things, just a little more boosted up. But this shows the gate right here, so we're gonna watch the gate take away the noise. So this is very loud right now, but that bottom piece right there is where whatever's below this, it is getting sent back to 0 dB, and it won't be heard. So all the little clicks, little taps of the mic, all that random stuff will be taken out. All right, so back to the next piece, which would be a compressor to pick up the low end from your voice, because a lot of times the low end is some part is usually missing, and it's not too great if you have a cheaper setup like mine, and you're not in a fully
all mine.
soundproof booth. Yeah, exactly. And there's ways around it. So you just get a little saturator that can turn some overdrive, which is basically overdrive is in instrumental terms. It would be a guitar playing distorted on an amp, and how much of that distortion they would want, because that's low end distortion. So like a distorted amp sound. Basically, that's what it's doing to your voice, but in a cleaner way.
Nice. And you'd want to do that too because the low end tends to be like where a lot of the pronunciation ends up getting lost if it's not treated right. Is
Yeah, and
that would that be a good way of thinking on that?
yes, exactly, and the bass of your voice would be lost too. But
Precisely, yeah.
on to the next point, which is a perfect place to pivot. There's a lot of low end you don't want. Anything below 100 hertz, you're not gonna want on your recording. So this is even not even curved enough for me. Um, should turn this a little bit higher and do a much harder cut. But I guess that's like the hardest cut I can get with this. Shape. Oh yeah, there is a harder cut times 4. So basically everything here and from 100 and below is going to be all BS noise, garbage noise you don't want to listen to, garbage you don't want to hear, and then everything else above here is where the human vocals, any human's vocals will most of the important parts will sit. So I have just two little points up here because after I think this is 4K. Yeah, 4K. That's 4K. 4K and above is where a lot of the clarity comes in, and sparkle and shine. Those are like terms that you'll hear more often. That's where you get a lot of shine in the vocals. That's where you make it kind of come up front, in combination with uh, picking up some of the low end right here when you duck it off. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention this. This is what we're working with is an EQ, an equalizer, which
Good
basically
old
is
parametric EQ, yes sir.
Yep. So parametric EQ, basically for anybody that doesn't know, these have several different points, up to 8. I have an 8-band EQ on. Several different points where you can manipulate the frequencies and certain frequencies of the sound. And for example, this is beneficial when you want to use any type of sound. Drums, they're usually on the low end. I mean, they are on the low end. They are always on the low end, unless you're talking about hi hats and stuff. But
Yeah, I was about
drums,
to say like cymbals would be the only other thing.
yeah, those can. That's what gets tricky with mixing drums. Is when you're mixing with hi hats and stuff. But yeah, so the low end, you wouldn't be doing any of what I'm doing right here. This would take all the drums away, and then it's vice versa for. I mean, it's the opposite for vocals. But when you do this to each section, which I'll teach you in another lesson, in the next
Yes
lesson,
sir.
which will be mixing. Um, this will be each section I have sectioned out so that the vocals have their own EQ right here. That's my EQ for my vocals, ducking out some of the harsher points and raising the others. I've saved this as mine because I've tested it out a bunch of times. And then here is then we have the drums EQ, which is no high end. Basically, I rolled off all the high end to where the cymbals come in and the hi hats come in right here, and then we have everything else just untouched and good to go. And then here's the sample, which is all the high end, where I roll off some of the low end, but I keep some of it because the instruments, some have some important information here that I didn't want to lose. But then I ducked a little bit of the mid, and that's oh yeah, and then for the end there is another compressor I use that just boosts the volume a little bit more because condenser mics will shrink the volume. And so basically, this is in a nutshell what you should have on your vocal chain. And then, if you find out certain things that work for you while using this basic pattern, you can, move stuff around or add stuff. But just be wary, as what I said before, adding a lot of stuff can muddy the original vocal because all that stuff you will be doing and will be adding the effects you can throw on in the mix. Granted, there's one thing we didn't mention that can be added to a tracking vocal, and that would be delay and reverb. And those are echo sound effects that basically make the vocals sound bigger and fill the stereo image so that you hear your voice coming from all angles or from a certain angle, however you want to mix it.
All
Does
right.
that does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I'm actually writing notes too, so I'm getting it written down in a good way. I'll be able to remember it.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to cut that portion here, and we are going to cut this video for today. I'm going to stop. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Like, comment, and subscribe if you liked what you saw. We'll be doing more of these very soon. Stay tuned. And thanks, Jake, for coming
Yes,
through
sir.
and being a great student. We will catch you guys next time. Peace.